And welcome to Car Con Carne, going solo tonight. Car Con Carne, sponsored by Sopel Solar, S-O-P-E-L, solar.com. We all saw the travesty, the disaster that happened in the wake of the hurricane, the storms in Florida. A story I'm sure you probably heard was that there was an entire community that didn't lose power. It's because they were all hooked up with solar. I'm not saying that Brent Sopel can change your fortune for the better, but I'm hinting at it. Go solar. Get those panels on your home. It costs nothing for the consultation. It costs nothing out of pocket to get solar added to your home. SopelSolar.com. Brent Sopel, former Chicago Blackhawk. He helped us win the Stanley Cup. He will help you win cost certainty. SopelSolar.com.
It's Car Con Carne. Let's eat in the car. It's Car Con Carne. And now here's the star of our show, James Van Alstyne.
Car Con Carne, also sponsored by 90 Days in the 90s, a rock and roll time travel story. It is the ultimate novel about the 90s and Chicago's music scene. Join record store owner Darby on her trip back to the 1990s Chicago as she jumps on the mysterious Gray Line and time travels back to her carefree 20s, soaking up all the pop culture and rock and roll nostalgia that you could ever imagine. To learn more, go to 90daysinthe90s.com and get a signed copy of the book there, or you can pick up the book on Amazon or wherever it is you buy books. So this is episode 782, which means we are getting dangerously close to episode 800, which seems ludicrous to say. It seems absurd, but it's true. I'm thinking, since I don't stick to like a weekly schedule, I sometimes do 2 or 3 episodes a week. I'm thinking episode 800 will probably land in early January, which is a terrible time to plan a live event, but I want to do something for it. I literally have nothing thought out that far ahead, but episode 800 is coming. I'm open to ideas because it's kind of a milestone, as I'm almost in 9 years of doing this. I want to do something special, not for me, not for the show, but for you, for actually listening and watching and paying attention all this time. So some quick podcast updates. I'm booked for the show through November-ish. I'm pretty booked out over the next few weeks. It's different. When I was booking during the pandemic, during the peak 2020, I was doing this every night. I wasn't really responsible for much else. I just did my show every night, and I was able to just bang these out night after night. It's harder as the world has gotten back to normal. I've got a day job, family, personal responsibilities, and other podcast things. It's hard to do more than 2 a week, if that many. So I'm in this weird situation that I don't want to be in, but I kind of have to be in. I've had to give myself permission to say no to podcast episodes and guests. It's a mental health thing. I'd love to be able to do an episode with everybody. I physically can't make that work right now. So apologies if you're someone who I had to say, I don't know if I could pull that off right now. Again, I'd love to be able to do it. If I could do this every night, that'd be great. It's just, I need to catch my breath and maybe stick to 2 a week or 3 a week, which still seems fairly ridiculous. That said, I've got really cool stuff planned coming up on the podcast tomorrow night. I'm recording this on Monday, October 3rd. Tomorrow night on the 4th, the Toadies. The freaking Toadies. They are touring behind the anniversary of the Rubberneck album, which was how most of us first discovered the Toadies. That show is coming to Metro next weekend. Toadies on Car Con Carne tomorrow. This coming weekend, Kill Scenes. I love the Chicago band Kill Scenes. We're going to record something at Club Belmont over on the northwest side. I think it's between like Cumberland and Harlem. Cool. So that's coming up. A lot more on the way. And as I talk about booking Car Con Carne, it's interesting. I had 2 unrelated guests over the past 3 months or so cancel and or reschedule due to what were described as mental health reasons. And I found that it kind of stopped me in my tracks. 2 different guests said, you know what, rough time right now, can't do it. And I'm thinking the group of Car Con Carne guests is a very small group. That's a very minimal part of the population. If I'm experiencing that situation with that small group of guests, just projecting that on the population at large, I'm sure a lot of people are still struggling. I mean, we kind of all understood that 2020 was a shit sandwich. Everyone was struggling. Mental health was an issue, but it sure does seem like it's an unrelenting problem. And I say all this because when I responded to both those people who reached out to me, I said what I usually say in a situation like that. Happy to listen. Whenever you need me to, if nothing else from years of doing interviews, I've gotten pretty good at listening. Happy to be a sounding board or someone to vent to. And that goes for you too. I mean, if you're watching on Facebook or on YouTube or listening, we have a relationship now. We're friends. I don't want anyone out there to struggle more than they need to. And I'm happy, even if it's over email, to listen to what's going on. I hate knowing that there's still so much of that going on. And no surprise. I mean, every time you turn on the news, it's depressing, it's terrifying, and it's rough. So it's not an empty gesture. It may sound like it, but I really, if there's a way I can help, I would love to do it. I hate knowing that people are struggling still the way that they are. So last night on my personal Facebook, I put out the all call. I sometimes do this, and you see a lot of podcasters do this, like, hey, I need your help trying to find restaurant partners to partner up with to record episodes at. I was extremely fortunate to have a lot of response, so I'm reaching out to those restaurateurs now. I would love to get back into a cadence of like 75% in-car episodes, but it's hard. When I started doing Car Con Carne 8+ years ago, myself and back in the beginning, my partner Mike and I would pay for all the meals for us and our guests. That is it's a bad business move. It's not a sustainable business plan when you're buying food for an entire band in a car. So I've been fortunate to have restaurant partners over the past year or two who, will, in exchange for the promotion, the product placement, provide food. And I've found a couple good partners moving ahead, and that's what I'd like to keep doing. So if you are a restaurateur and want to be part of the show, I'd love to prop you up, show off your food, and include you in Car Con Carne. As far as the car itself goes, I'm currently doing rental Car Con Carne. I was in a car accident 2 weeks ago. It was the day before Riot Fest. Driving down Lincoln Avenue, heading north on Lincoln. It wasn't at like a traffic light intersection. Car coming in the opposite direction just decided to turn left. Totally fucked up the timing. Turned left right in front of me, giving me no chance to stop. I slammed into the car. My humble Mazda 3 was just totaled in the front. Just hood crashed up, headlights shot, leaking unknown fluids. So that is currently in the repair shop. I don't know when it'll be ready. I'm sure you've all heard the stories of supply chain issues, and they're currently waiting on various plastic parts to use to fix my car. And for now, though, I'm in a sporty Nissan Versa, yeah, which is perfectly lovely and gets the job done for now. Going back to the booking thing, I've been in that situation where I've had to teach myself to say no. Not always easy. I did have a book author reach out to me for a book that I thought sounded pretty interesting. And I said, sure, let's do something. Let's do something end of November. And I said, before we chat, can I get a PDF copy of the book? I want to be able to read it, internalize it, come up with questions for the conversation. And the author said, well, I'm hosting an event at the end of October, and you can get a copy there and be added to our press list. Otherwise, no. So the only way I could get a copy of the book to read to prepare for this interview I was pitched on is to show up at an event at this one time in this one place. I passed on the interview, but that's fucked up, right? Like a PDF copy, just something you can email me? You reached out to me. I digress. Happy spooky time. Happy horror time. Happy October. So many people I know who are probably watching or listening right now love Halloween season. I'm all for it. I'm one of those people who doesn't just watch horror movies in October, although I'm not shaming people who do. Horror movies are 12 months a year for me. If you haven't seen this yet, men, it's sufficiently creepy. It's over-the-top body horror. It's one that'll leave a mark. So I don't want to give too much away about it if you haven't seen it, but Men is worth seeing. I've got soundtracks on the way. I love horror soundtracks. I don't know if you're like me. If you're working from home, as a lot of us are these days, I listen to a lot of soundtracks while I'm working from home. Sometimes lyrics are so distracting that I kind of pay attention to them instead of what I'm typing on my screen. So I like having soundtracks, and horror soundtracks are especially great when I'm working. John Carpenter, of course, being the gold standard. Let's see, I've got Terrifier 2 on the way, Friday the 13th, and Halloween Ends. Those are all like, every time the mailman comes, I'm looking to see if I've got a big square box waiting for me. I love that stuff. As far as other new music, this isn't new at all. I went record shopping yesterday. I'm really excited to have this Gary Newman album, Telecon. I haven't had this for like 30 or 40 years. I mean, my God, this wreckage. I love it. New stuff I'm listening to. I don't know what you're listening to. This new Metric album I think is great. I think Metric is just one of the most consistent bands, album after album. And I loved listening to this. And I'm sure you've heard enough people talk about this. The Afghan Wigs album, the new one, absolutely awesome. So I traveled for my first time on a plane in 6 years. I traveled for my first time in 6 years last week. I went to San Diego for a work trip. Very weird after not flying for as long as I hadn't flown. But I went on this work trip, and I was really busy. It was a really busy trip. Every day I had something. Every night I had something. Didn't really have time to catch my breath until the last night I was in San Diego, which was last Sunday night. And when I used to have to travel for business, I would try to make a point of doing something local, doing something that wasn't in the tourist area, that wasn't cheesy. So I was looking around. I was looking at Polestar and local websites, trying to figure out if there was any cool show I could see. The nearest cool show, and it was a really cool show, was Iron Maiden, outdoor amphitheater in Chula Vista, which was maybe a 15-minute lift from where I was. I went to the Maiden show. They were great. I've seen them a bunch of times. Really awesome. Seeing the sound was great. Seeing them live, all those big set changes and Bruce Dickinson's voice. Oh my God. Maiden merch, no surprise. The lines for Iron Maiden merchandise are always super long. Like, you got to plan accordingly. Make sure you get in that line long before Iron Maiden takes the stage. Otherwise, you will miss the first two songs of the show. But when they go to different markets, they have special tour shirts, which I love, customized. Like, the one I remember most from Chicago was Eddie on a horse riding through the front of the Chicago theater. Love that. So I bought the San Diego version, which let me see if I can hold it up to the camera. It is Eddie riding a shark, a couple sharks. Kind of amazing, right? $50 later. But no, this is great. This is the California tour shirt. It has dates for Anaheim, Chula Vista, and Concord on the back. So that was my keepsake souvenir. This is pretty metal, the shark on the back. This was my pound of flesh for going on a work trip. This is what I had to take home. The Iron Maiden Legacy of the Beast tour shirt. Anyway, I just wanted to check in. I haven't done a solo show for a while. You know, for broadcasters, going solo is a weird thing. It never quite feels comfortable, but at this point, almost 800 episodes in, whatever. Just wanted to say hi. And what I was saying earlier about mental health, reach out. Always happy to be sympathetic, empathetic, just an ear for you. We're friends at this point, so happy to help however I can. Anyway, thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. The Toadies will be the next episode you hear here